Well, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are doing a day one Human Torch Advanced guide. This guide is basically intended to give you absolutely all the information that you could possibly need to play the Human Torch like a pro. So let's go ahead and get into this guide. And as always, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you like the video and want to see other guides with gameplay. And let's get into it. Okay, first up is settings. Let's go ahead and get that out of the way. This section is super simple. So there's no settings that I would recommend changing. And moving on. So your first ability, your primary fire, is your left click. It's called Fire Cluster. And what this does is it shoots a fireball that splits into smaller projectiles. You can use this in like close to medium range combat. And it's essentially a shotgun. It shoots one large projectile that transforms into a bunch of different pellets that all hit the enemy at the same time. It does have pretty significant damage fall off, starting at just 15 meters and decreasing all the way to 60% damage fall off at 40 meters. So you want to be playing pretty close to maximize your damage, but not so close that you just get smacked around. Also, you can see in the middle of the screen these 6 like flame icons, which represent your ammo. This recharges over time, and it's important to note that there is no reload mechanic on this character. You simply have to wait for your primary fire to recharge. It does recharge really quick though, so it shouldn't be a problem ever. Since your ammo has to recharge, you can't just spam this ability. This is because even though they recharge quickly, you can shoot these clusters at almost twice the speed as they recharge at. And I'll break down later how you can avoid running out of charges, but this ability does do massive damage. Like, you always want to be aiming for the head as best you can, even though this character is really hard to aim with because of the delay on essentially starting the projectile's travel plus its travel time. It's pretty rough. But you can do critical hit damage, and it does massive damage. You can two-shot people all the time if you are landing the majority of your pellets in their head. Next ability we're going to cover is your right click, which is called Blazing Blast. And what this ability does is it launches a fireball at a pretty slow rate that persists on the ground for 6 seconds. This fireball can be used to either create a flame field or to explode for really big damage. This ability is one of the primary parts of your burst damage combo, which we'll get into later. Now you get 3 charges of this ability, and these also recharge over time. It takes 2 seconds for each charge to come back, so 6 seconds total to recharge all 3. Blazing Blast does 40 damage on impact, which isn't too much in itself, but if you create a flame field with Blazing Blast, it will last for 6 seconds and do 25 damage per second for a total of 150 damage. And to be clear, this is not the flame field damage. This is simply the dot damage that Blazing Blast itself, your right click, would provide. And you're basically going to be wanting to weave in your right click, your Blazing Blast, with your left clicks. And this will offset some of the reload issues, the recharge rate issues that could present itself. But I'll get more into that later. Okay, next up is your left shift ability, your plasma body. This one is very straightforward. Essentially, you enter a state of faster movement. This movement can be in any direction. Base movement speed without this ability is 6 meters per second. When you're using this ability, you get a 50% boost, so you'll be moving at 9 meters per second, and it lasts for a total of 8 seconds. It takes 6 seconds to fully recharge. And like Iron Man, you can't use any other abilities while using this quick flight mode. So it's basically movement only, no attacks, no defense, no nothing else. Next up is going to be your E ability. This is called Pyro-Prison. Now this ability requires you to use your Blazing Blast, your right click, or you can use Pyro-Prison. And what it does is it forms a firewall or a fire field between 2 to 4 Blazing Blast fields to do continuous tick damage. This ability is pretty crazy in its potential. It has a maximum range of 40 meters, which is absolutely massive. It also has a max height differential of 2 meters, which means that you can slightly put it on stairs or ramps, so anything greater than 2 meters will not connect, so it will basically be like you wasted the ability. So it'll go on cooldown and you will not have the tick damage. Flame field lasts for 5 seconds and has a cooldown of 15 seconds. It does 65 initial damage and then 50 damage per second, totaling in at 315 damage, which is massive. That is a huge amount of damage that hits everyone in the area. And obviously this means that anyone in your flame field except for tanks will absolutely get killed if they're not healed or get out of the area. It's essentially like a zone where they just simply cannot exist. The next ability up is going to be your F ability. This is Flaming Meteor. What this ability does is, again, it works off of your Blazing Blast, your right click, and when you activate the F ability, you dive towards the ground at very high speed, dealing damage to all enemies in the area, as well as detonating all flame fields in the same area. It also has a pretty significant knockback, which is pretty cool. One important thing to keep in mind with this ability is that you can't be at too much of a horizontal angle from where you want to dash. Meaning, essentially, you have to be pretty high up in the air, or relatively high up, and or looking down at a pretty steep angle, because the dash is very vertical. It doesn't have a whole lot of horizontal movement. And this ability has a 12-second cooldown. Let's see, it does 40 impact damage, and then each Blazing Blast field does an additional 55 damage. So that means they stack. So you can do a total of 95 damage if you do one Blazing Blast field, or you can do significantly more if you stack all your Blazing Blast fields on one dash zone. There is kind of like this interesting range mechanic to it, because the area of effect for the dash is 5 meters spherical, but the flame field only explodes in a 3-meter spherical range. This means that you can technically detonate the flame fields without them doing any of the additional damage if they are more than 3 meters away from the target. So there's like a 2-meter range at the external, like outer parts of it, where it just won't do any damage because it's too far away, even though they do get ignited. Next up is going to be your Q ability. Of course, this is your ultimate. It's called Supernova. What this ability does is your character model explodes with fire to deal an initial damage to enemies in range, as well as transform all flame fields, your right clicks, into flame tornadoes, dealing very high damage. It's a total cost of 3,400 energy, which is pretty high. It's definitely not the cheapest. So the initial damage that your Q ability, your ultimate, does when you activate the ability is going to be 70 damage, and this is within a 20-meter spherical radius around you. Then each flame that you put out does an additional 100 damage per second, which is massive. The thing with this, though, is that the flame tornadoes only have a 3-meter range, so they basically have to be like right on top of the target to deal actual damage. It also has an 8-meter high field effect, so you can kill low-flying flyers. If they're like Iron Man flying way up in the air, you can't hit them. There's no way. Now, one interesting thing that I found was that on the Marvel Rivals website, they say that this ability, this ultimate, does 100 damage per second, which means that it should take 2.5 seconds to kill a squishy like Moon Knight that has 250 health. But on my testing, it was taking close to 4 seconds, so I'm not really sure what's going on there yet. I don't know if the ultimate is bugged and doing less damage than it should, or if the website has the wrong numbers displayed. I just don't know what the situation is yet. But this ultimate does last for 8 seconds, and you can throw a new tornado out every 0.7 seconds. It is important to know that you can only have a maximum of 3 tornadoes at a time. So if you throw out any more than that, then the oldest tornado will disappear and the new tornado will appear at whatever location you chose. Also, you get 30% damage reduction while your ultimate is active. So for that 8 seconds, you have damage reduction as well by 30%. Okay, so that is all of our abilities. Now let's move on to the 2 teamos that we have at our disposal. First one we'll go over is the defensive one, which is with the Fantastic Four. It's called United Siblings. And essentially what this does is it's a team up with Invisible Woman as the anchor, and you just press C to activate. It's very straightforward. And it essentially gives you over health and heals you for a certain amount that we'll get into in a second. And yeah, that's essentially the gist of it. You also get damage reduction as well on top of that, which is a beautiful thing. So this ability lasts for 5 seconds, has a 20-second cooldown, provides 100 extra health, which is pretty dang nice. Heals at a rate of 5 health per 0.1 seconds, which is very impressive. And like I said, you have the damage reduction as well. You do have to have already taken damage or be about to take damage for it to have an effect. Like if you're at full health, it doesn't give you from 250 health to 350. It just won't do anything if you activate it while you're at full health. Unless you start taking damage, then it'll kick into effect. And then the bonus health simply decays over a couple seconds once the ability expires. The next team up is with Storm, and this is your offensive team up called Omega Fire. It is so cool and so powerful. Essentially what you're doing is you're teaming up ultimates with Storm. So you're using both your own ultimate and Storm's ultimate at the same time, and it greatly empowers both ultimates as long as you use them at the same time. So like if you spawn your flame tornadoes with your ultimate inside of a Storm's ultimate, then your tornadoes will be an increased size as well as do increased damage, and then Storm's ultimate will basically like double in size. It gets massive and it does a huge amount of damage as well, and it even lasts long. But the size of the flame tornado, that will basically increase from a 3-meter radius to a 5-meter radius, and then an 8-meter height to a 10-meter height. So it gets larger in literally every way. Your tornadoes will also do 110 damage per second instead of 100 damage per second, which is, more damage is always nice. This team up has an even stronger effect on Storm's ultimate, like I mentioned. It greatly increases the size of her ultimate and the damage as well as the time it persists. I think Storm's ultimate does like 70 or 75 damage per second, and then using this team up increases it to 110 damage per second. So it's a massive jump in damage. And I mean, like with this team up, you can kill enemies through like strategist ultimate. So you can kill Luna while she's ulting. You can kill I think just about every support ult in the game. And there's going to be 5 different ways for you to essentially activate this ultimate team up. The first interaction is going to be from the Human Torch's perspective, and essentially once Storm unleashes her ultimate, you can press X while looking at her hurricane to turn it into the fiery hurricane. This is a suboptimal method of using this team up. It is not the best way to do it. You're missing out on some damage if you do it this way. Next interaction is, it's going to be again from the Human Torch's perspective, and you can pop your ultimate before Storm, and she'll be able to teleport to your flame tornado and create an immediate fire hurricane. This is a much more optimal approach because it maximizes the length as well as the damage of Storm's ultimate. And yeah, this is the way you want to set this team up. The last interaction from Human Torch's perspective is you can pop your ultimate while Storm is ulting already and simply throw a right click into her hurricane and it will ignite it. You just have to get one of those flame tornadoes into her zone of ultimate damage awesomeness. But this is also a suboptimal approach because you're missing out on some of Storm's ult time as well as a lot of damage. And then from Storm's perspective, you can essentially pop her ult, Storm's ult first, travel into one of the Human Torch's flame tornadoes, or the Human Torch can throw a flame tornado into her hurricane to ignite it. Again, this is going to be the suboptimal way. This is not maximizing your damage or ultimate time. Best way from Storm's perspective, if you're playing Storm versus Human Torch, is that Storm can hit X once the Human Torch throws out his first flame tornado, and it will immediately teleport her to the flame tornado, and her ultimate will turn into a fiery hurricane immediately. This is the best way to do it because you're using Storm's entire, time frame of her ultimate, and it's doing the increased damage that entire time. It's lasting longer by I believe 2 seconds. So yeah, this is the way you want to set this up. Okay, let's look at how to essentially use all of these abilities that Human Torch has together. How to string combos together. These aren't going to be like one-hit KO combos. This is just the basics of how to use his kit. And since we're not looking at this as a one-hit combo like tech, essentially, this is going to be for your basic poke damage throughout the game, throughout the match. So before I mentioned that you can't just spam his left click, you're going to want to throw in right clicks at least after every 3 left clicks. That will make sure that you never run out of ammo on either of your abilities. You also want to use your right click to drop your dot fireball onto the ground, either at the enemy's feet or in a triangle or a square around them, or on an objective, something like that. And then you have the option of using your E ability to create a flame field, or your F ability to dive in and do that burst damage. You can also, you can even do both abilities, but you need to start with your E ability because the F ability is going to consume the flame field. So you want to get the tick damage from the flame field first to kind of zone them out And then you can use your F ability if the enemy is close to one of the flames, or if you can drop a new one right, underneath the enemy and use F after that to explode them. For your ultimate, there's really like two different situations that you want to look out for. First is if you have a storm on your team, you definitely want to coordinate your ultimates with storm. This will greatly increase the impact of your ultimates, and it can straight up win many team fights. Now, if you don't have a storm, then what you're going to want to do is place all three of your flame tornadoes on a single target, preferably a squishy, like a strategist or something like that. And you want to keep replacing them until that target dies. So if they're running around trying to get away, you want to place, your tornado just slightly ahead of them so that they're basically running into it and maximizing the time that they're in that tornado. And then once that target dies, you move on to the next target, replacing all your tornadoes to the new target. And this is just simply going to increase the chance of killing one or more than likely multiple targets. Okay, let's move on to animation canceling. This is very important. Basically, you can animation cancel your left click by immediately right clicking once the flame has left the Human Torch's hand. You don't need to wait for the impact. As soon as it leaves your hand, you can right click and skip the rest of that animation. You can also animation cancel your E ability by immediately hitting your F ability. And lastly, you can animation cancel your right click by immediately hitting your F ability as well. Okay, now let's get on to one of the most important parts of this entire video. This is going to be the combos to one-tap targets of various health levels, whether it's 250, 275, 300, tank health pools, whatever. So for a 250 health target, you have a few options. You can left click and animation cancel that into a right click, animation cancel that into an F ability. This is going to cause you to dive in, so this is very situational. If there's a lot of people alive and you think you're probably going to be the center of attention, it's probably best not to use this combo. So let's say you're not in a situation where it's a good time to dive in. What is a combo you can use instead to replace that to still get a kill, to secure that final hit? Essentially, this is going to be very straightforward. It's going to be left click, animation cancel into a right click, and then left click again. The thing with this is that it is significantly more easy to secure the kill if you can land headshots, which if you're close enough, it's pretty simple. If you're far away, it's going to be very tough. But even if you can, it's like 1 or 2 ticks of dot damage to finish a kill. So really, it's not likely that they're going to get out in time unless they're getting healed quickly. Now, let's say the target is 275 health, like a Luna Snow. What you can do is left click into an animation cancel to right click, then animation cancel that into the F ability, and then a simple left click after they're knocked back from the F ability. And if you headshot your first left click, then you actually don't even need the second left click at the end of this combo. You'll already have done enough damage to kill them. Another combo you can use if you, again, don't want to dive in, if it's not a good situation, if it's not safe to do that, is you can left click into animation cancel into the right click, and then simply left click again. The issue with this combination is that you do have to land at least 1 headshot. I mean, even then, they probably are going to have to take at least 1 tick of fire damage, of dot damage, depending on how many pellets hit their head. I mean, if you get a perfect shot, you might not need the tick damage, but chances are that's not going to be the case. For 300 health characters like Black Panther, what you can do is always start with the left click, animation cancel that into the right click, animation cancel that into the F ability, and then left click. This is the exact same combination as the 275 health characters. The only difference is that with a 300 health character, you are going to need that second left click regardless of how many pellets hit their dome. The other combination you use for 300 health characters is a left click, animation cancel that into the right click, and left click. The issue with this combination, again, is that you have to get at least 1 headshot, or they have to take some fired dot damage. And I'm sure you guys noticed, but these combinations are pretty consistent among the different health tiers. For example, like you can always left click with as a headshot, the headshot being required, and then right click and then dive or do a second left click to get a kill, to secure the kill. The issue with this is that you just have to land a lot of the pellets on their head with at least one of the left clicks, preferably the first one. And because of that, it makes it less unlikely that, you know, you're gonna secure the kill unless they're like right on top of you and you have great aim and they're not getting healed very quickly. Yeah, I also have one tank busting combo. I mean, this is obviously it's gonna work a lot better on non-shield tanks, and it will vary a bit depending on which tank you're up against. Like a Venom has, you know, a very large health pool, Groot has a huge health pool, but some of the tanks are significantly lower health, so it may take, you know, a few less attacks to finish those off. But for this example, I'm going to use Venom since he has a fairly high health pool compared to the majority of the other tanks. And assuming that, you know, you're trying to take down a tank from full health for some reason, what you're going to want to do is start with the left click like always, animation cancel that into a right click, left click again, animation cancel that into a right click, another right click, and then finish it off with an F ability. This is assuming the tank is staying static, like in place enough that you get the burst damage from all of the flame fields that you put down. But they will take down a full health Venom, which is 800 health, which, I mean, that's a massive amount of damage. And the thing is, the majority of the time, like, you won't be taking on a tank from full health by yourself. You know, you'll be looking at the tank when it's like around half health and you think you can finish off the kill with, hopefully, with the help of your team. So let's say, you know, Venom again in this situation, and he's at half health roughly, and all you need to do for this is left click, animation cancel that into the right click, F ability after that, and then a simple left click. This does require headshots though. Gotta keep that in mind. A lot of these require headshots, so aim is very important for all of these combos. Okay, so let's get into like the mindset, the different playstyles you can fill with this character. You know, so as far as, you know, what mindset you should have, well, let's start before the game even starts. As far as like team comps, you want to consider that, because there are situations absolutely where you do not want to play this character. It's not going to be good for your team. It's going to be a hindrance. For example, like an Adam Warlock, probably not a good healer to have backing you up. It's just a little tough, especially since you're going to usually be at range from him. It makes some of his abilities not even effective. Luna Snow, Storm, Invisible Woman, these would all be great choices. You know, you get 2 team ups from 2 of the 3 there. Luna Snow can put her guard on you, the snowflake, and basically heal a tank or whoever else in it heals you at the same time. It's pretty common for Luna to put on a dive or a fly or something like that. And then, you know, during the actual match, you have, and then, you know, during the match, you have really 2 goals that you want to be striving to achieve. First is very simple and straightforward. It's simply to provide poke damage, sustained poke damage. You want to be putting out consistent numbers, which is very easy on this character. You can very often be the highest damage on a leaderboard simply by putting down your flame fields, your firewalls, and doing that consistent poke damage. Your other goal, which in my opinion is more impactful really, is you want to be setting yourself up for dives when you see the opportunity to burst a squishy down. So if you see that one of the DPS pushes up too far, or one of their healers gets separated from the rest of their team a little bit, you know, that's your opportunity to throw out your combos to essentially, you know, kill them in a second and a half. Now, one unfortunate thing with this character is there are a lot of characters you gotta watch out for. I mean, like, to name a few, you gotta be careful of Hela, Namor, Bucky, Widow, Spider-Man, basically any hero with CC, and there's a lot in this game. It can be pretty rough. Now, I want to talk about positioning too, because I think this is one of the few characters in Marvel Rivals that has like a variable positioning that's, you know, going to be optimal for different situations. For example, like, you know, if you're trying to zone out an enemy team with flame fields, and you know, you want to be far away, you want to be up high or peek around cover, something like that, to reduce the damage that you're taking. And you know, it has a very long range, so you can put down your flame field from very, very far away. so there's no reason to be up close where you can take a lot of damage and get one shot. But on the other hand, you know, if you're doing poke damage or looking to dive squishy or something like that, then you want to be pretty close up and personal. I mean, you want to play behind your tank and not all the way back with supports, because you only have a 15-meter range before your damage starts falling off pretty significantly. It drops down to 60%, which is very, very high. As for zoning, since your E ability creates a zone that will literally kill every hero except for tanks, unless they're getting healed or something like that, you are the perfect character for controlling where the enemy team can and cannot go. You want to be using 4 blazing blast fields to create the largest possible flame field as often as possible. If you don't have time to put all 4 down, because the first one will expire pretty quickly if you're not fast enough, then go with 3, and that's absolutely fine. It's just a small area, that's it. But it's still highly effective. You can also use your ultimate to kind of zone out the DPS or strategist. This works pretty well, especially since it takes up a lot of, you know, the visual space on their screen. Like, I would recommend focusing first on the strategist, since, you know, let's say you're able to force some strategist ults out. That's absolutely outstanding. Or let's say, even better yet, you're able to secure a kill or 2 kills. You killed 2 of their strategists. Your team can pretty easily finish up the team fight after that, because they have no more heals. And the Human Torch is a dive character. I mean, like, literally, he dives in. You know, he's a difficult dive character though, but he does have some utilities in his kit to burst someone down very easily. He excels at putting out a lot of constant poke damage, which makes him look great on the scoreboard. But it's important to remember that your role is to secure kills, not tickle the enemy team. You'll want to coordinate with your team to burst enemies down, dive in when you need to secure a kill, and then you need to also back out as quickly as possible. Your invisible woman team up can help a lot with this. It can make a huge difference. Also, communicating with your team, letting them know that you're about to dive so they know to focus heals on you for a few seconds while you get back out so you don't get killed on the way out. One last rule that this character can provide is anti-dive. There's not a lot of anti-dive characters in this game. There's like the Meteor, Penny, Human Torch, the Thing. That's the main ones off the top of my head. And I mean, I don't think Human Torch is nearly as effective as an anti-dive character as like the Meteor. I think the Meteor is like top tier, but he can serve this role pretty effectively. And it basically just comes down to, you know, your ability to zone enemies out. Like, as soon as you see a dive on your enemy team, you know you're probably going to need to place your flame fields on your team's backline to protect them instead of on the enemy team. Between the tick damage as well as the various CCs your team has, you know, such as sleep, freeze, and your ability to burst down a single isolated target, especially with your team's support, you should be absolutely able to keep your strategists and other DPS alive against dive comps. Alright, thank you all so much for watching this Day 1 Human Torch Advanced Guide. Really hope you liked the video. And, you know, if you did like it, feel free to, well, like it and subscribe to the channel if you want to support us and be part of our community. Especially if you want to see more Marvel Rivals guides and content, gameplay, stuff like that. You know, we'll have plenty of stuff coming out in the future, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.